never imagined at 58 years old I would be forced to choose between my retirement savings and my only son. My name is Carol Johnson, a retired elementary school teacher from Portland who dedicated her entire life to raising Andrew after his father walked out when he was just 3. The late-night phone call still echoes in my mind. "I need $20,000 by tomorrow, Mom. No excuses." His voice was cold, desperate, demanding. What followed would tear my heart apart, but ultimately set me free in ways I never expected. Before I tell you what happened when I knocked on his door, let me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe to join me for more life stories that might save you from the mistakes I've made. Being a single mother wasn't what I had planned for my life. When I married Richard in my early 20s, we had dreams of a house filled with children's laughter and growing old on a porch swing watching grandchildren play. But reality had different plans for us. After giving birth to Andrew, complications meant he would be our only child. I poured all my maternal love into him, creating a bond that I thought would withstand anything. When Andrew turned 3, Richard came home late one evening, his eyes avoiding mine. "I've met someone at work," he said flatly. "She's 24 and I'm moving out this weekend." Just like that, our 8 years of marriage crumbled. The divorce left me with minimal child support that often arrived late, if at all, and the full responsibility of raising our son. I still remember crying myself to sleep that first night alone, Andrew's small hand patting my wet cheek, saying, "Don't be sad, Mommy. I'll take care of you." From that moment, I vowed he would never feel the absence of his father. I would be enough for both parents. Teaching elementary school provided a stable but modest income. To afford the extras that would give Andrew opportunities, I tutored students after hours and worked weekends at a local bookstore. During summer breaks, I picked up administrative work at the school district office. Sleep became a luxury as I balanced multiple jobs with being present for every moment of Andrew's childhood. Baseball was Andrew's passion from the moment he could grip a bat. I never missed a game sitting in the bleachers grading papers between cheering his hits. When his science project on renewable energy won the state fair in 6th grade, I used my entire month's discretionary budget to drive him to the regional competition 3 states away. We stayed in the cheapest motel we could find, sharing a single bed and giggling about the flickering lights and mysterious stains on the carpet. Those were the moments that sustained me through the exhaustion. "Mom, you're the strongest person I know," 16-year-old Andrew told me, after I worked 36 hours straight between my teaching job and a weekend convention to earn money for his college application fees. "When I'm successful someday, I'm going to take care of you the way you've taken care of me." Those words became my mantra during difficult times. When Andrew was accepted to Cornell University with only a partial scholarship, I didn't hesitate to take out parent loans to cover the difference. My retirement could wait, his future couldn't. During his college years, our Sunday phone calls were the highlight of my week. He would share his classes, his friendships, his growing interest in financial markets. I would listen, heart swelling with pride at the confident young man he was becoming. When he landed an internship at Goldman Sachs his junior year, I splurged on a plane ticket to New York to take him to dinner, spending money I didn't really have just to see his face light up when I surprised him outside his dorm. Then came Danielle. Andrew mentioned her casually at first, a classmate in his international business course. As weeks passed, her name appeared more frequently in our conversations. By spring break of his senior year, he called with news that made my heart sink slightly despite my smile. "Mom, I want you to meet Danielle when you visit. She's amazing." I met her at a restaurant far beyond my budget, but I wanted to make a good impression. She was strikingly beautiful with perfect blonde hair, manicured nails, and designer clothes that even I recognized on my limited fashion knowledge. What struck me most was how she barely asked me anything about myself, steering every conversation back to her ambitions, her family's vacation home on Cape Cod, her plans for a career in luxury brand management. When Andrew looked at her, I saw something new in his eyes. Not just love, but a kind of aspirational hunger. She represented a world he had glimpsed during his internship, a world of wealth and status that contrasted sharply with his upbringing in our modest 3-bedroom ranch home. They married just 6 months after graduation. Andrew had secured a position as a junior financial analyst at a prestigious firm, and Danielle was working as an assistant buyer for an upscale department store. The wedding was held at her parents' country club, a venue that made me acutely aware of the class difference between our families. Though they insisted on paying for most of it, I emptied my small savings account to contribute what I could, wanting to maintain my dignity as the mother of the groom. After the wedding, the changes in Andrew became more pronounced. Our weekly calls dwindled to monthly, then occasionally. His visits home for holidays were shorter often, with Danielle making thinly veiled comments about the size of my house or the modest neighborhood where he grew up. "I just can't imagine living somewhere so cozy," she said during one Thanksgiving, the word cozy dripping with condescension. "Don't you want to upgrade Carol? Andrew could help you find something more suitable." "This house is filled with 30 years of memories," I replied, trying to keep my voice light. "It's paid for, which gives me peace of mind in retirement." At 55, after 3 decades of teaching, I finally retired. My pension, combined with careful savings, would allow me a modest but comfortable life. My home was finally paid off, a small victory that represented thousands of brown bag lunches and years without vacations. I had enough to cover my needs and simple pleasures: my garden, my book club, occasional dinners with fellow retired teachers, and my volunteer work at the local literacy center. Just as I was settling into this new chapter, my doctor discovered an irregular heartbeat during a routine checkup. The medication was expensive, even with insurance, creating an unexpected strain on my fixed income. I didn't tell Andrew about my health concerns. He seemed stressed with his own life, and I didn't want to burden him with worry about me. What I didn't realize then was that the financial pressures in his life were far greater than mine, and they were entirely self-inflicted. The first call came about 8 months after Andrew and Danielle moved into their new house in Bellevue Heights, an exclusive neighborhood where lawyers, doctors, and executives lived in sprawling homes with manicured lawns. "Mom, I hate to ask, but we're a little short this month, just a temporary cash flow issue until my bonus comes through. Could I borrow $2,000? I'll pay you back next month, I promise." Without hesitation, I transferred the money from my modest emergency fund. When he called with a similar request 3 months later, I noticed a pattern beginning, but pushed the concern aside. "Of course, honey. That's what family is for." During my visit to their home for Andrew's 31st birthday, I couldn't help but notice the signs of their extravagant lifestyle. Danielle greeted me wearing a necklace I later overheard her telling a friend cost more than my monthly pension. Their kitchen had been recently renovated with imported Italian marble countertops. A new home theater system dominated their living room, and Andrew mentioned casually that they were considering installing a pool for the following summer. "Business must be going well," I commented, as Andrew showed me their wine collection bottles that I recognized from my limited knowledge cost hundreds of dollars each. A flash of something crossed his face. "It's going fine. Just a lot of pressure to perform. The market's been volatile." Later that evening, as I helped clear dinner dishes, I overheard a tense exchange between them in the hallway. "You promised we'd discuss any purchases over 500, Andrew hissed. "That's the 4th credit card statement this month with charges I didn't know about." "Don't be such a killjoy," Danielle replied, her voice honeyed but with an edge. "The Wilsons invited us to their Aspen chalet. I needed appropriate attire. You want to make the right impression with senior partners, don't you?" When I returned to the dining room, they were all smiles again, but the tension lingered in the air like a heavy perfume. On my drive home, the next day, an uneasy feeling settled in my stomach. Something wasn't adding up between their lifestyle and what I knew of entry-level financial analyst salaries, even at prestigious firms. That Thanksgiving at their house, the disconnect became even more apparent. Danielle had hired a professional chef to prepare the meal, dismissing my offers to help cook with a wave of her hand. "We're beyond home cooking now, Carol," she laughed. "Life's too short to stuff a turkey." As she gave me a tour of her newly decorated home office, she pointed out a painting that dominated one wall. "Original artwork is the best investment," she explained. "This piece has already appreciated 20% since we acquired it last month." During dessert, Danielle regaled us with stories of their recent trip to Bali, showing photos of private villas and exclusive beach clubs on her phone. "We absolutely had to go before the season changed," she explained. "The weather wouldn't have been perfect otherwise." Andrew remained unusually quiet throughout the meal, refilling his wine glass frequently. When Danielle excused herself to make coffee, I gently asked if everything was all right. "Just work stress, Mom," he said quickly. "End of year is always intense. We're fine." But they weren't fine. The calls for loans became more frequent, the amounts larger. $5,000 for an unexpected tax bill. $3,000 when their refrigerator supposedly broke, $7,000 for emergency plumbing issues. Each time Andrew promised repayment that never materialized. Each time I dipped deeper into my savings, the nest egg I had so carefully built over decades of frugal living, slowly diminishing. My friend Janet, a retired accountant I'd known since college, voiced her concerns over coffee one morning. "Carol, honey, when was the last time Andrew actually paid you back for any of these loans?" she asked, her fingers making air quotes. "He's going through a rough patch," I defended automatically. "He'll get back on his feet." Janet's eyes softened with concern. "A rough patch doesn't include vacations to Bali and new luxury cars. You're enabling something unhealthy here. Your retirement savings won't last forever." I brushed off her concerns, but her words lingered. That night, I scrolled through Danielle's Instagram page, something I rarely did. Photos of weekend getaways, designer shopping bags, expensive restaurant meals, and spa days filled the feed. None of it aligned with the financial hardship Andrew described when calling to ask for money. Still, I couldn't bring myself to confront him. He was my only child, my whole world. The fear of damaging our relationship kept me silent, even as my bank account dwindled and my anxiety grew. After all, I reasoned perhaps this was just a phase. Young people today lived differently than my generation. Maybe this was normal in their social circle, a temporary stretch before their careers caught up with their ambitions. Surely they would find their footing soon. I couldn't have been more wrong. For Andrew's 32nd birthday, I made reservations at a nice but reasonably priced restaurant in their neighborhood. When I arrived, Danielle's face fell visibly. "Oh, we thought you'd choose Maison Laurent," she said, referring to the most expensive French restaurant in the city. "Andrew's been craving their truffle risotto. This place has excellent reviews," I offered, trying to mask my hurt. "And they're known for their homemade pasta." Throughout dinner, Danielle made subtle digs about the quaint decor and simple menu. Andrew seemed distracted, checking his phone repeatedly under the table. When I presented him with a cashmere sweater I'd carefully saved for Danielle, merely glanced at it and said, "How practical," in a tone that made it clear this wasn't a compliment. As we waited for dessert, Andrew cleared his throat nervously. "Mom, I hate to bring this up on my birthday, but we're temporarily short on our mortgage payment. Just a timing issue with my commission structure. Could you help us out?" $5,000 would cover it until things stabilize next month. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. $5,000 represented almost half of my remaining emergency fund. But, looking at my son's anxious face, I couldn't say no. "Of course, honey. I'll transfer it tomorrow." Danielle immediately brightened, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "You're such a lifesaver, Carol. We're so blessed to have you." The next morning, I transferred the money, adding it to my notebook, where I now kept track of Andrew's loans. The total had reached $23,000. None of it repaid, despite numerous promises. That Christmas, I drove to their home with modest gifts and homemade cookies, my heart heavy with financial worry. Walking into their living room, I froze at the sight of the towering Christmas tree, surrounded by piles of elaborately wrapped packages. A new piano stood in the corner, though neither Andrew nor Danielle played. "Do you like it?" Danielle asked, following my gaze. "It's mainly decorative, but it really completes the room, don't you think?" I nodded mutely, my mind calculating the cost against the financial emergency that had prompted Andrew's call for help just 2 weeks earlier. After dinner, Danielle excitedly led me to the garage to show me her Christmas gift from Andrew, a brand new luxury SUV with a red bow on the hood. "It was such a special deal we couldn't pass it up," she explained, running her hand lovingly over the gleaming paint. Later, helping Andrew with dishes, I gently broached the subject. "Honey, I'm a little confused. Last month you said you were struggling with the mortgage, but the gifts, the piano, Danielle's new car..." His face hardened in a way I'd never seen before. "It's complicated, Mom. The car was financed, the other things, they're investments in our lifestyle. In this industry, appearances matter." "But Andrew, if you're having trouble making your mortgage payment..." "I said it's complicated," he snapped, then immediately softened. "Look, I'm sorry. Work is stressful right now. Everything's under control. We just had a temporary cash flow issue, that's all." I wanted to believe him, needed to believe him, but later that night, using his bathroom, I accidentally knocked over a stack of mail on the counter. As I picked up the scattered envelopes, I couldn't help noticing several with the red final notice stamp clearly visible. credit card statements from 6 different companies, a past due notice from their homeowners association. On the drive home, I called Janet in tears. I think they're drowning in debt, I confessed, but they keep spending like there's no tomorrow, and I've given them nearly all my emergency savings. Oh, Carol, Janet sighed. You need to stop. This isn't helping Andrew. It's feeding something destructive. But he's my son. What am I supposed to do? Let their house be foreclosed? You're assuming that's actually the situation. Have you seen any proof, any mortgage statements, any financial documents at all? I hadn't. Just Andrew's increasingly desperate requests and vague explanations. In the months that followed, Andrew became increasingly distant except when he needed money. Our once close relationship dwindled to transactional calls that left me feeling used and confused. I began screening my calls, anxiety spiking whenever his name appeared on my phone. Sleep became elusive as I worried about both my son's financial situation and my own dwindling resources. The medication for my heart condition had increased in price, creating additional strain. I took on part-time tutoring work despite my doctor's advice to avoid stress trying to replenish what I'd given to Andrew. When I gently suggested they might benefit from financial counseling, Andrew reacted with uncharacteristic anger. We don't need counseling, we need understanding and support, he said coldly. If you can't provide that, then just say so. The emotional manipulation was subtle but effective. Each time I hesitated or questioned a request, Andrew would reference my role as his mother, my promises to always be there for him, how he counted on me when no one else would help. I was caught in a web of maternal love and financial fear, unable to see a way out that wouldn't destroy my relationship with my only child. Then came the call that would change everything. The ringtone startled me awake at 11:42 p.m. Fumbling for my phone in the darkness, my heart raced with immediate anxiety when I saw Andrew's name. Hello, Andrew, is everything okay? My voice was thick with sleep and worry. Mom, I need your help. His words slurred slightly, suggesting he'd been drinking. We're in trouble. Real trouble this time. What's happened? I sat up, fully alert, now turning on my bedside lamp. I need $20,000 by tomorrow. The demand came without preamble, his tone harder than I'd ever heard from him. $20,000, Andrew, that's impossible. I don't have that kind of money available. My retirement account had strict withdrawal limitations and penalties. Figure it out, he snapped. In the background, I could hear Danielle sobbing dramatically. Take out a loan. Use your home equity. Something. Andrew, please calm down and tell me what's happening. Why do you need so much money so suddenly? There was a long pause, followed by a heavy sigh. We're $350,000 in debt, Mom. Credit cards, personal loans, everything. The investment I made went sideways. The market crashed in that sector. And now we're facing foreclosure if we don't make a payment by tomorrow afternoon. The room seemed to spin around me. $350,000. How is that possible? Your salary. My salary barely covers the minimums, he interrupted. We've been floating between cards, taking out new loans to pay old ones, but it all collapsed when my investment failed. What investment? I asked, struggling to understand. Cryptocurrency, he muttered. It was supposed to triple our money in 6 months. Everyone at the firm was getting in on it. In the background, Danielle's voice rose sharply. Tell her about the credit cards, too. Tell her everything. Andrew's voice dropped lower. Danielle's got 15 credit cards maxed out. Designer clothes, furniture, trips. We kept thinking my bonus would cover it or the crypto investment would pay off, but nothing worked out. Now the cards are all in collection, my credit score is tanked, and the mortgage company is calling every day. I pressed my hand against my racing heart, trying to process the magnitude of their financial disaster. Andrew, $20,000 won't solve a $350,000 problem. You need professional help, debt counseling, maybe even bankruptcy protection. We don't need a lecture, he shouted, his voice suddenly vicious. We need the money tomorrow. If you ever loved me, if you meant anything you ever said about always being there for me, you'll do this. I do love you, I said, my voice breaking. But I need time to think to figure out what's best. There's nothing to think about. Either you help us or you don't. And if you don't, his voice turned cold, then don't expect to be part of our lives anymore. What? You heard me. If you can't do this one thing when we're desperate, then what kind of mother are you? And don't think you'll be welcome to see your grandchildren either once we have them. I felt as though I'd been slapped. This wasn't my son speaking. This was a desperate, cornered man using the most devastating threats he could think of. Andrew, please don't say things like that. Let's talk about this rationally tomorrow. Tomorrow will be too late. I need the money by noon or we lose everything. 20,000, Mom. I'll text you the account details. He paused, then added with chilling finality, Don't let us down. The call ended, leaving me sitting in my quiet bedroom, shaking. My son, my sweet boy who had once patted my tears away, had just threatened to cut me out of his life if I didn't empty my retirement savings to temporarily plug a hole in his financial disaster. Sleep was impossible after that. I paced my small living room until dawn, weighing impossible choices. If I gave Andrew the money, it would deplete most of my remaining savings, potentially leaving me vulnerable in my own senior years. And it wouldn't solve their fundamental problem, just postpone the inevitable crash. If I refused, I risked losing my only child forever. Around 5 a.m., I called Janet, apologizing for the early hour. As I poured out the whole story, she listened in silence. When I finished, her response was gentle but firm. Carol, my dear friend, you've spent your entire life sacrificing for Andrew. But this isn't a sacrifice, it's a hostage situation. He's emotionally blackmailing you. But what if they really do lose their house? What if he really cuts me off? Then that will be his choice, not yours. You cannot set yourself on fire to keep him warm, especially when he's just going to demand more matches tomorrow. Her words resonated with something deep inside me. For the first time, I began to see my situation with clarity. After speaking with Janet, I drove to her house where we spent the morning making calls. First to my bank to understand exactly what resources I had available. Then to a financial advisor Janet recommended, who confirmed what I already suspected my money would be: a temporary bandage on a gushing wound. Based on what you've described, the advisor said gently, your son and daughter-in-law have a spending addiction, not just a temporary financial setback. Without addressing the underlying behavior, any money you provide will simply disappear into the same hole. Next, I did something I'd never thought I would need to do. I searched Danielle's public social media account, scrolling through months of posts. What I found confirmed my worst fears. While Andrew had been calling me with increasingly desperate pleas for financial help, Danielle had been posting photos of shopping sprees, spa weekends, and expensive restaurant meals. Just 3 days ago, she had shared an excited post about their upcoming healing retreat in Santorini, Greece, with the caption, Sometimes you just need to invest in self-care, #blessed, #living your best life. They were planning a European vacation while begging me for mortgage money. I need to see for myself, I told Janet. I need to look them in the eye. With shaking hands, I withdrew $10,000 from my bank, nearly all I could access without penalties. It was half of what Andrew had demanded, but it would show I was trying to help while giving me leverage to insist on seeing their actual financial situation. I placed the cash in an envelope and drove to their neighborhood. As I approached their house, I noticed the freshly installed professional landscaping that hadn't been there during my Christmas visit. 2 luxury cars sat in the driveway, both newer models than I remembered. Their 3-story home loomed before me, at least 5 times the size of my modest ranch house. All this extravagance purchased with debt and subsidized by my teacher's pension. For a moment, I sat in my 15-year-old sedan, gathering my courage. Then I walked to their front door and rang the bell. Andrew opened the door, his expression shifting from expectation to visible disappointment when he saw the thin envelope in my hand. Mom, he glanced at his watch, we were expecting you hours ago. I needed time to think, I replied, keeping my voice steady. May I come in? He stepped aside reluctantly. In the spacious foyer, I noted the new artwork and designer furniture that hadn't been there during my Christmas visit. Danielle appeared from the kitchen, her eyes red, but her makeup perfectly applied. She wore designer loungewear that probably cost more than my monthly pension. Carol, her greeting was cool. Andrew said you'd be bringing the money. I followed them into their living room, perching on the edge of an uncomfortable but clearly expensive modernist sofa. I've brought some money, I said carefully, placing the envelope on the glass coffee table between us. $10,000. It's what I could access immediately without serious penalties. Andrew snatched up the envelope, opening it to count the bills. His face darkened. This is only half of what we need. I know, and I'm willing to discuss how I might help with more. But first, I need to understand exactly what's happening. Can you show me the foreclosure notice? The mortgage statements, the credit card bills? A look passed between them. Danielle spoke first. Why do you need to see all that? Don't you trust us? It's not about trust. I explained, though, in truth, it was exactly about trust. If I'm going to help in a meaningful way, I need to understand the complete situation. $10,000 is a significant amount of money for me. I need to know it's going to make a real difference. Andrew ran his hand through his hair, a gesture reminiscent of his childhood frustration. Mom, we don't have time for this. The payment is due by 4 o'clock. If you want to help, we need the other $10,000 now. Before I consider that, I'd like to understand something. I kept my voice gentle but firm. Your social media shows you booked a trip to Greece recently. If you're facing foreclosure, why would you be planning an international vacation? Danielle's face flushed. You're spying on us. I was trying to understand what's really happening. It doesn't make sense to me. Andrew shifted uncomfortably. The Greece thing, it was just, we've been under so much stress. The financial advisor suggested we might lose the deposit if we canceled, so… What financial advisor? I asked. I thought you said you couldn't afford professional help. Another uncomfortable glance between them. Look, I continued, I love you both and I want to help, but I can't just hand over my retirement savings without understanding what's really going on. If you're truly facing foreclosure, I need to see the notice. If you're really $350,000 in debt, I need to understand how that happened and what the plan is to address it. We don't have time for this interrogation. Danielle suddenly exploded. Either help us or don't, but stop pretending you care while holding your money over our heads. I do care, I said quietly. That's why I'm here with $10,000 I can't really afford to give. But I care too much to enable behavior that's clearly destructive. Enable? Andrew echoed, his voice rising. We're drowning here, and you're worried about enabling us. What happened to, I'll always be there for you? I am here for you, I insisted. I'm offering financial help, but also trying to help you face the reality of your situation. This cycle isn't sustainable. Even if I give you $20,000 today, what happens next month and the month after? We'll figure it out, Andrew said dismissively. My bonus is coming up and Danielle has a lead on a better paying position. That's exactly what you said last time, I pointed out, and the time before that. Danielle stood abruptly. I don't need to sit here and be judged in my own home. Either give us the full amount or take your moral superiority elsewhere. I felt a strange calm descend over me, clarity emerging from the fog of emotional manipulation. I'm offering you $10,000 and help finding proper financial counseling. That's my final offer. Andrew's face hardened into an expression I'd never seen before. Then you can leave, and take your pathetic $10,000 with you. He threw the envelope at me, bills spilling across the expensive carpet. Andrew, I gasped, shocked at his behavior. If you can't help us when we really need it, then what good are you? He demanded, standing over me. Don't call us, don't visit, don't expect to be part of our lives. When we have children, they won't even know your name. Tears filled my eyes as I knelt to gather the scattered bills. This isn't you talking. This is fear and desperation. No, this is me finally seeing clearly, he retorted. You've always held your sacrifices over my head, always expected gratitude for doing the bare minimum a parent should do. Now when I actually need you, you're full of questions and conditions. That's not true, I whispered, my heart breaking. Just go, Danielle said coldly. But don't think this ends here. Family has obligations, legal obligations. The threat hung in the air between us. With shaking hands, I returned the money to the envelope and stood. I love you, Andrew. That hasn't changed and won't change. When you're ready to talk about real solutions, I'll be there. Get out, he said through clenched teeth, and come back tomorrow with the full amount, or don't come back at all. The slam of the door behind me echoed like a gunshot. I made it to my car before the sobs overtook me, great heaving cries that felt torn from the depths of my soul. The boy I had raised, sacrificed for loved beyond measure, had just threatened and discarded me over money. As I drove away, grief warred with a growing sense of resolve. Something fundamental had broken today, but perhaps it needed to break for truth to finally emerge. I spent that night at Janet's house, too emotionally devastated to be alone. We sat on her porch until dawn, talking through my options, my feelings, my fears. By morning, I had made my decision. "Are you absolutely sure about this?" Janet asked as she helped me pack a small suitcase. "I've never been more sure of anything," I replied, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. For 30 years, I've defined myself solely as Andrew's mother. I've twisted myself into knots, trying to be what he needed to fill the gap his father left. But somewhere along the way, I lost myself, and Andrew lost his way too. My first stop that morning was my bank, where I withdrew exactly $1,000. Next, I visited a financial counselor recommended by the advisor I'd spoken to the day before, collecting information about debt management programs, credit counseling services, and the bankruptcy process. At a stationery store, I purchased quality paper and a new pen. Sitting in a quiet coffee shop, I wrote Andrew a letter pouring out 30 years of love, hope, disappointment, and finally boundaries. "My dearest son," I began, tears occasionally blurring my vision as I wrote. "The hardest lesson I've ever learned is that sometimes love means saying no. I've given you everything I could throughout your life joyfully and without regret, but I cannot give you what you're asking for now, not because I don't love you, but because I do. The money wouldn't solve your problems. It would only delay the inevitable reckoning with the choices you and Danielle have made. $350,000 of debt didn't happen overnight or by accident. It happened one purchase at a time, one rationalization at a time, one 'I deserve this' at a time. I'm enclosing $1,000, not as a solution, but as a symbol that I still care. I'm also including information about financial counseling services that can help you navigate this crisis. They can help you create a debt management plan, negotiate with creditors, and possibly avoid bankruptcy. As for your threat to cut me out of your life, that is your choice to make. My door and my heart will always remain open to you, but I will no longer be an ATM to fund a lifestyle built on financial quicksand. I will no longer accept emotional manipulation or threats. I deserve better, and frankly, so do you. You are stronger than you know, Andrew. You can face this challenge and rebuild. When you're ready to do that, I'll be here to support you in healthy ways, with love, encouragement, and wisdom, but not with financial bailouts that only perpetuate the problem. I love you unconditionally, but from now on, my financial support comes with conditions. Those conditions are honesty, responsibility, and a genuine commitment to change. With all my love now and always, Mom." With trembling hands, I sealed the letter in an envelope along with the $1,000 and the financial counseling information. Then I drove to Andrew's neighborhood one last time. It was mid-afternoon and both cars were gone from the driveway, suggesting they were out, probably frantically trying to secure money from other sources. I placed the envelope securely in their mailbox, my heart both heavy and somehow lighter. Back at Janet's house, I made a series of difficult but necessary decisions. I called my phone company and changed my number, providing the new one only to Janet and a few close friends. I contacted a local property management company about temporarily renting out my home. I emailed my doctor to transfer my medical records to a practice in Oceanside, a small coastal town 3 hours away where Janet's sister owned a guest cottage. By evening, my phone was already filling with voicemails and texts from Andrew, his tone evolving from confusion to anger to threats as he discovered my letter instead of the money he expected. "How could you do this to us?" one message demanded. "After everything I've done for you." Another, sent hours later, was more ominous. "This isn't over, Mom. You have legal responsibilities. Our lawyer will be contacting you." The final message, sent near midnight, broke my heart anew. "I hope you're happy in your righteous tower while we lose everything. Don't ever contact us again." I didn't respond to any of them. The next morning, Janet drove me to Oceanside, where I would begin a 3-month sabbatical from my old life. The small cottage overlooking the Pacific became my sanctuary, a place to heal and rediscover who Carol Johnson was apart from being Andrew's mother. A week after I left, Danielle posted a scathing rant on social media about selfish parents who abandon their children in times of need without naming me directly. Friends forwarded it to Janet, who filtered what I needed to know. 2 weeks later, a certified letter arrived from an attorney representing Andrew and Danielle demanding financial support based on familial obligation and threatening legal action. I forwarded it to a lawyer Janet recommended, who confirmed what I already suspected: adult children have no legal claim to their parents' assets in our state, regardless of their financial situation. The legal threats eventually stopped. The emotional ones continued sporadically whenever Andrew or Danielle found a way to contact me through mutual acquaintances. Meanwhile, I began building a new life in Oceanside. I took long walks on the beach, watching the eternal rhythm of the waves gradually soothe my shattered heart. I joined a book club at the local library, making new friends who knew nothing of my painful history. When I mentioned I'd been a teacher, the owner of a charming independent bookstore offered me part-time work organizing their children's reading program. For the first time in decades, I was living entirely for myself. The guilt was overwhelming at first, waves of it washing over me at unexpected moments. What kind of mother abandons her child in his time of need? The question haunted my sleepless nights. But gradually, with distance and perspective, I began to recognize the difference between abandonment and boundaries. I hadn't abandoned Andrew. I had refused to enable his self-destruction. I hadn't withdrawn my love. I had withdrawn my participation in a dysfunctional dynamic. 3 months into my stay in Oceanside, I joined a support group for parents estranged from adult children. Listening to others' stories helped me realize I wasn't alone, that the pain I carried was shared by many who had made similar difficult choices out of love, not spite. The hardest part, one mother shared, was realizing that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let them face the consequences of their own actions. It feels like the opposite of love, but it's actually the purest form. 6 months after I left, a letter arrived, forwarded from my old address. I recognized Andrew's handwriting immediately, my heart racing as I carefully opened the envelope. "Mom," he began simply. "We filed for bankruptcy last month. The house is gone. Both cars repossessed. Danielle and I are separated. She's moved back with her parents in Connecticut. I'm writing not to ask for money, but to say you were right. We were out of control, spending money we didn't have, living a lie that finally collapsed around us. The financial counseling information you left helped me understand how deep the hole really was. I'm angry and hurt that you left without saying goodbye. I said terrible things I can't take back, but in my calmer moments, I understand why you did what you did. It still hurts, but I get it. I'm living in a studio apartment now. I kept my job somehow. The bankruptcy will follow me for years, but at least I can breathe again without the crushing weight of debt. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I'm ready to rebuild our relationship. I just wanted you to know that I'm starting to see things clearly for the first time in years. Andrew." I read the letter a dozen times, tears flowing freely. It wasn't a reconciliation, not yet, but it was a first fragile step toward honesty, the foundation upon which we might someday rebuild. My response was careful, measured. I expressed my continued love, my sorrow for his difficulties, and my hope for his future. I offered emotional support without financial promises. I shared a little about my new life, keeping the details vague for now. I closed by saying my door remained open when he was ready, without pressure or timelines. Months passed. Occasional brief emails were exchanged, each less charged with emotion than the last. He shared that he'd started therapy to understand his relationship with money and status. I shared that I'd begun teaching literacy classes to adults at the community center. Small steps, tiny bridges being rebuilt over a chasm of hurt. For my 60th birthday, a small package arrived containing a hand-carved wooden ornament of a teacher at a desk. "Made this in a woodworking class I'm taking." The note read, "Thought of you." It wasn't a complete reconciliation. That would take years if it happened at all. But it was something real, something honest, something not based on financial manipulation or emotional blackmail. Meanwhile, my life in Oceanside evolved from temporary refuge to permanent home. I sold my house in Portland and purchased a small bungalow 2 blocks from the ocean. My part-time bookstore job brought unexpected joy, surrounding me with literature and eager young readers. I made genuine friendships based on shared interests rather than shared history. On difficult days, I still questioned my choices. Had I been too harsh? Should I have given Andrew the money that day, Could I have found some middle ground? But in my heart, I knew the breaking point had been necessary. Like setting a broken bone so it can heal properly, the painful separation had created space for truth and potential healing. One evening, walking along the shore as the sun set, I realized that something profound. I was happy. Not the contingent happiness that depends on others' approval or success, but a deep, authentic contentment that came from living in alignment with my values. For the first time in my adult life, I was Carol first, not just Andrew's mother or Richard's ex wife. The journey from doormat to dignified had been excruciating. The price had been nearly unbearable. But on the other side of that pain was a woman I was proud to be a life worth living on my own terms. I don't know what the future holds for Andrew and me. I hope for reconciliation, for a mature relationship between two whole, healthy adults. I pray he finds his way to financial and emotional stability. I keep the door open while maintaining the boundaries that protect my hard-won peace. But regardless of what happens between us, I will never again sacrifice my self-respect on the altar of maternal martyrdom. True love, I've learned, requires truth and boundaries. Sometimes walking away is the only path to finding yourself. And sometimes the most loving thing a parent can do is to say no, even when every instinct screams yes. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have given Andrew the money or drawn the line as I did? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories of difficult choices and personal growth. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, it's never too late to reclaim your life and set healthy boundaries, even with those you love most.